Owen Brady had exactly 12 minutes to fix the atmospheric regulator before the entire ventilation system crashed in Sector 9. His hands moved quickly through the exposed wiring panel, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air. 3 years working maintenance on Meridian 7 had taught him every quirk of the station's aging infrastructure. The panel beeped twice, then hummed back to life. Perfect! He grabbed his toolkit and stepped back into the corridor, only to realize something was wrong. This hallway looked different. Polished marble floors instead of metal grating. Elaborate tapestries hanging from walls that should have been bare steel. Owen checked his tablet. Sector 9, Level 14, Junction 42. Exactly where he was supposed to be, except the Grand Assembly Hall was on Level 14. His stomach dropped. The layout must have changed for the annual coalition gathering. They had rerouted the maintenance passages without updating the crew schedules. Owen turned to backtrack, but the corridor doors sealed shut with a heavy thunk. Automated lockdown for the ceremony. He would have to wait until the session ended or find another exit. Voices echoed ahead, many voices speaking in dozens of languages. Owen considered his options. He could wait here in the corridor for 3 hours, or he could slip into the back of the hall and find a side exit. The latter seemed smarter. Less chance of getting written up for leaving his post. He pushed through the inner doors as quietly as possible. The Grand Assembly Hall opened before him like something from a dream. Vaulted ceilings soared overhead, inlaid with crystals that cast rainbow light across hundreds of delegates. Species from across the galaxy filled tiered seats arranged in a vast circle. Owen recognized maybe half of them from safety briefings. VRYNN with their iridescent feathers and sharp beaks. Torque, whose crystalline bodies refracted light into dazzling patterns. Quinn with their 4 arms and mathematical precision. Dozens more he had only seen in photographs. Every single one of them looked important. Dressed in formal attire, wearing symbols of rank and achievement. And then there was Owen, wearing grease-stained coveralls with his name patch barely visible under grime. His toolkit still hung from his belt, tools rattling softly. A VRYNN delegate near the entrance turned at the sound. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She nudged her companion and whispered something Owen could not quite hear. Both of them stared at him. Then they laughed. The sound carried further than it should have. Other delegates turned to see what was funny. More whispers spread like ripples across water. Owen felt his face burning. He needed to find a seat or an exit immediately. The only empty seats were in the back row, isolated from the main clusters of delegates. Owen understood why. Nobody wanted to sit in the worst seats at the most prestigious event of the cycle. He moved quickly along the back wall, trying to ignore the stares and poorly concealed laughter. The Torque delegate spoke loud enough for nearby sections to hear. Did anyone order maintenance during the ceremony? I did not realize we had scheduled repairs. More laughter rippled through the hall. Owen reached the back row and sat down in the furthest seat, wishing he could disappear into the cushions. His hands gripped his knees. Just wait it out. The ceremony would start soon, and everyone would forget about him. The massive doors opened again. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. The laughter died completely. A Panthros entered the hall. Owen had never seen one in person. Few humans had. The Panthros rarely left their hunting worlds, and even more rarely attended diplomatic functions. This one stood nearly 8 feet tall at the shoulder when on all fours. Sleek fur covered powerful muscles that rippled with each step. Golden eyes scanned the room with predatory intensity. A long tail swayed behind her with hypnotic grace. DXZER. Owen had heard the name whispered in station corridors. She was one of only 3 Panthros to ever accept a coalition council position. Feared, respected, deadly beyond measure. The delegates gave her wide berth as she walked down the center aisle. VRYNN pressed back into their seats. Torque angled away despite having no obvious vulnerable points. Even the proud Kellis, who feared almost nothing, watched her with wary attention. DXZER reached the back rows. Her golden eyes swept across the empty seats, then fixed on Owen. Owen stopped breathing. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he knew predators chased fleeing prey. He forced himself to remain still. Panthros could tear through reinforced steel. His coveralls offered no protection whatsoever. He was going to die in front of the entire Galactic Coalition because he had taken a wrong turn fixing an air filter. DXZER moved toward him with fluid grace, each step measured and deliberate. She stopped directly beside his seat. Then she sat down. The entire hall erupted in whispers. Shocked gasps mixed with confused murmurs. Delegates leaned toward each other, speaking rapidly in their native languages. A few actually stood up to get a better view. Owen sat frozen. His heart hammered so hard he wondered if DXZER could hear it. Probably. Panthros' senses were legendary. She could likely count his heartbeats from across the room. DXZER settled into her seat with casual elegance. Her tail draped across the armrest between them. She faced forward, apparently unbothered by the commotion her choice had caused. A VRYN delegate in the third row spoke to his companion in a carrying whisper. "Look at that." The animal recognizes its own kind. Scattered laughter followed. Not as bold as before, but present. A few delegates seemed to find the situation hilarious. The primitive human in his work clothes, sitting beside the apex predator. Like some cosmic joke, that Owen's face burned hotter. Anger mixed with embarrassment and fear. He wanted to say something, defend himself, but what could he possibly say? He did not belong here. Everyone knew it. DXZER's ear twitched slightly. The only indication she had heard the comment. Owen swallowed hard and glanced sideways at the massive predator beside him. DXZER's eyes remained forward, but her posture seemed relaxed. Not hunting stance. Not aggressive. Just sitting. He made a decision. Probably a stupid one, but better than cowering. Owen gave DXZER a small nod of acknowledgement. One person recognizing another, regardless of species. DXZER's eyes shifted to meet his. Golden and deep and intelligent. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she returned the nod. Barely perceptible, but there, the chief arbiter called the session to order. The chief arbiter's voice filled the hall through hidden speakers. Distinguished delegates, we gather today to discuss expansion protocols for the fringe territories. Several proposals await consideration. Owen tried to focus on the words, but his entire awareness centered on the massive predator sitting inches away. DXZER remained perfectly still, her breathing slow and measured. Owen wondered if she could smell his fear. Probably. He tried to calm down, focusing on the proceedings that a Torque delegate named Granite approached the central platform. His crystalline body caught the light, sending fractured rainbows across the chamber. The fringe territories contain significant mineral deposits. My corporation proposes establishing extraction facilities on 17 viable worlds. We estimate operation commencement within 2 cycles. Murmurs of approval from various sections. The Torque were known for efficient resource gathering, Granite continued. Initial surveys indicate no sentient life on 14 of these worlds. The remaining 3 host primitive cultures that would benefit from our civilizing influence. Owen felt his jaw tighten. Civilizing influence usually meant displacement. He had read enough history to know how that story ended. A VRYN delegate named Praxis took the platform next. His blue and gold feathers were immaculately groomed, each one precisely aligned. The VRYN Navigation Guild proposes establishing waypoint stations throughout the fringe. These stations would provide guidance to lesser species attempting transit through difficult space. Lesser species. The term hung in the air like smoke. Praxis smiled, showing the sharp edges of his beak. Of course, guidance services would require appropriate compensation. We believe a standard fee structure would benefit all parties. More approving sounds from the assembled delegates. Owen noticed how they nodded along, accepting these proposals as natural and correct. Between presentations, the whispers about Owen continued. A Kellis delegate in row 5 turned to her companion. I still cannot believe they let maintenance staff into the Grand Assembly. What is station security even doing? Probably the same thing humans always do, her companion replied. Making a mess someone else has to clean up. Quiet laughter spread through nearby seats. Owen stared straight ahead, trying to ignore it. His hands gripped his knees hard enough that his knuckles went white. He had dealt with prejudice before. Working maintenance meant most delegates saw him as invisible until something broke. He could handle being ignored. Being openly mocked in front of the entire coalition was different. That DXZER's tail twitched. A subtle movement back and forth across the armrest. Owen had read that Pantheros' tails indicated mood. A swaying tail meant irritation. The movement was slight, barely noticeable, but definitely there. Praxis was still talking, outlining the VRYN proposal in elaborate detail. Then he paused, as if struck by sudden inspiration. Of course, we would need support staff for these waypoint stations. Perhaps we could employ humans for basic maintenance tasks. They seem well suited for such work. He gestured toward Owen with one wing. We have a perfect example right here. Although I must question the wisdom of allowing service personnel into leadership discussions. Perhaps security could escort our friend back to wherever he is supposed to be before he damages something important. The laughter was louder this time, less restrained. Several delegates actually applauded the comment. Owen felt his face burn. Every instinct told him to stand up, to defend himself, to explain that he had gotten lost doing his job while they sat around talking about exploiting primitive species. But he was alone in a room full of the galaxy's elite. His opinion meant nothing. DXZER's claws extended. The sound cut through the laughter like a blade. 5 razor-sharp talons scraped against the metal armrest, leaving deep gouges. The screeching metal silenced the hall instantly. Praxis stopped mid-sentence. Every delegate turned to look at DXZER. The Pantheros stood slowly, unfolding to her full height. Even in a room full of different species, she towered over most of them. Her golden eyes fixed on Praxis with predatory focus. I chose this seat deliberately, DXZER said. Her voice was deep and resonant, carrying easily through the sudden silence. I would hear why you mock my choice. Praxis blinked rapidly, his feathers ruffling. I meant no offense to you, honored Pantheros. My comments were directed at the human. Yes, DXZER said softly. I know. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Praxis recovered quickly, his diplomatic training kicking in. He spread his wings in a gesture of appeal to the wider assembly. Surely you understand, honored one. Humans are recent arrivals to the coalition. They contribute little of value. Their lifespans are short, their bodies weak, their technology primitive. They have no natural weapons, no particular advantages. They are suited for menial labor and little else. Several delegates nodded agreement. A Torque in the front row spoke up. Praxis speaks truth. Humans lack the qualities necessary for galactic leadership. More murmurs of support rippled through the chamber. Owen started to stand. I should go. I'm causing problems just by being here. DXZER's tail moved in front of him, blocking his path. She did not look at him, keeping her eyes fixed on Praxis. Stay. I would hear you defend your kind, human. Owen sat back down slowly. His heart was racing again, but for different reasons now. The entire galactic coalition was watching him, waiting. He stood again, more carefully this time. His work boots felt too loud on the polished floor. His coverall seemed even more out of place under the crystal lights. But he stood anyway. I'm not a diplomat, Owen said quietly. I fix air filters and repair wiring. I'm not good at speeches. Speak anyway, DXZER said. Owen took a breath. Humans come from Earth. Most of you know this already. What you might not know is that Earth is classified as a Category 9 death world. Almost everything there can kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the air in some places. Humans survived because we learned to work together. We learned that being the strongest individual mattered less than being part of a strong community. Praxis made a dismissive sound. Pretty words. Sentiment is not substance. Give me one concrete example of human superiority. Owen opened his mouth to respond, but DXZER spoke first. I can give you several, the Pantheros said. DXZER walked down from the back row with measured steps. Every eye in the Grand Assembly Hall followed her movement. She reached the central platform where Praxis still stood, his feathers now slightly disheveled. 3 cycles ago, DXZER began, I was hunting on a frontier world designated as unclaimed territory. I had tracked prey for 6 days through difficult terrain. During the hunt, I encountered another Pantheros. A territorial dispute followed. The hall remained absolutely silent. Pantheros' territorial fights were legendary for their brutality. I won the fight, Dyra continued, but I was injured. Poison from native plants had entered my bloodstream through wounds. I was dying slowly, unable to move properly. In such situations, most species would avoid the injured predator. This is natural. This is sensible. She turned to face the assembled delegates. A human survey team found me. 5 humans in light exploration gear, conducting mineral assessments. They saw me, recognized what I was, and understood I was dangerous even when wounded. Praxis shifted his weight. And they helped you? Is that the story? One anecdote means nothing in the scope of galactic relations. Dyra's eyes narrowed. They did help me. They shared their medical supplies, used their antibiotics to fight the poison. They gave me their rations because I was too weak to hunt. They asked for nothing in return, expected nothing in return. When I recovered enough to travel, they were gone. They left coordinates to their base camp in case I needed further assistance. Owen felt something shift in the room. Some delegates were leaning forward now, interested despite themselves. I spent the last 3 cycles investigating humans, Dyra said. I wanted to understand the species that helps its predators. I traveled to 12 worlds where humans work. I watched them in situations where their true nature would be revealed. She turned to the Torque section. On Mining World K-447, there was a cave-in. 3 Torque workers trapped in toxic conditions. Torque supervisors calculated rescue costs and deemed the operation unprofitable. They ordered the site sealed. Granted, the Torque delegate who had presented earlier shifted uncomfortably. Human contractors refused the order, Dyra continued. They violated their employment agreements and safety protocols. They went into unstable tunnels filled with poison gas. All 3 Torque workers survived. The humans asked for no additional payment. They simply went back to work the next day. Murmurs spread through the hall. Some delegates were checking their tablets, presumably verifying the story. Dyra turned to the VRYNN section. On Medical Station Horizon 9, a plague ship arrived. Crew dying from a disease with 90% mortality rate. The species was VRYNN. Station authorities wanted to quarantine the ship and let the disease run its course. Too dangerous to treat, they said. Praxis's feathers ruffled again. I know nothing about this. Why would you? Dyra asked. The humans who saved your people never requested recognition. Human doctors insisted on treating the infected crew despite infection risks. They worked for 16 days straight, developing treatments. 73 VRYNN survived. The doctors returned to their regular duties and never mentioned it in official reports. More delegates were checking their tablets now. Some looked surprised. Others looked uncomfortable. On Research Outpost Gamma 14, Dyra continued. A multi-species crew lost communication during a solar storm. Coalition Command deemed rescue economically unfeasible. The outpost was on a dead world with no strategic value. Command classified the crew as lost and closed the case. Owen found himself leaning forward. He had not heard this story. A human merchant vessel diverted 3 weeks off course, Dyra said. They spent their own fuel, their own resources, searching for the outpost. They found the crew alive with life support failing. 14 researchers from 5 different species. The humans rescued them all. Again, they asked for nothing in return. The chief arbiter spoke for the first time since the presentations began. These are remarkable accounts, honored Pantheros. But Representative Praxis raises a valid point. Individual incidents, however impressive, do not necessarily indicate species-wide patterns. Owen stood again. He was already standing out anyway. Might as well commit to it. These stories match what I know about my people, he said quietly. Humans do not help others because we expect rewards or status. We help because on Earth, the strongest bonds form through shared struggle. We learned that your pack, your tribe, your community includes anyone who proves themselves through actions. not through what species they were born as. A elderly Quinn delegate in the middle section rose slowly. His forearms moved with precise mathematical grace. If I may address the assembly. My name is Oris. I serve the Quinn Statistical Analysis Bureau. The chief arbiter nodded. You have the floor, Analyst Oris. Oris pulled up a holographic display. Numbers and charts filled the air above the central platform. I have been recording and analyzing cross-species interactions for 47 cycles. When the Panthros representative mentioned investigating humans, I pulled comparative data. The charts shifted, showing incident reports from across coalition space. In crisis situations involving multiple species, humans statistically demonstrate the highest probability of risking personal safety for others. The percentage is significant. 68% of documented cases where humans were present and other species were in danger, humans intervened regardless of personal cost. Praxis made a dismissive sound. Statistics can be manipulated. These are raw incident reports, Oris replied calmly, filed by station authorities, ship captains, and medical facilities. I did not select for positive examples. This is the complete data set. Furthermore, when examining long-term conflict reduction, stations with significant human populations show a 23% decrease in interspecies incidents. More whispers spread through the hall. The kind of whispers that meant minds were changing. A Torque in the front row stood abruptly. Her crystalline form was smaller than granite, worn at the edges in ways that suggested age. I'm Silica. I was one of the 3 workers trapped in the K-447 mine. The hall went quiet again. I remember the humans who came for us, Silica said. Her voice carried the harmonic resonance typical of older Torque. I remember seeing them through the toxic haze, wearing inadequate protection because they had given the better gear to us. I remember one of them, a female named Riley, carrying me through a tunnel that was collapsing. She did not know me, had never met me before that day. Silica turned to face the entire assembly. I never thanked her. I went back to my corporation and never said anything about what happened. But I remember. Silica's admission hung in the air like a challenge. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then another delegate stood, a VRYNN from the medical section, smaller than Praxis with green-tinted feathers. My name is Sira. I was on the plague ship. I was dying. I remember human doctors working around me, even though the disease was airborne. They wore protective gear, but still risked infection through any tear or breach. She looked directly at Praxis. One doctor, a male named Ahmed, held my hand while I was delirious with fever. He stayed with me for hours, even though he had other patients. He told me stories about Earth, about his family, about anything to keep me focused on living. I survived because of him. More delegates shifted in their seats. Some were pulling up records, verifying claims. Others simply watched as the testimonials mounted. A Kellis researcher stood next. I was on Gamma 14. We had 13 days of oxygen left when the human ship found us. The merchant captain, a female named Ruth, used her own ship's reserves to supplement ours during transport. Her crew went on reduced oxygen for 3 weeks to make sure we had enough. One by one, delegates rose, each sharing their own encounter with humans. A Quinn engineer whose life was saved by a human medic during a reactor breach. A Torque trader whose cargo was rescued by human mechanics who worked for 2 days straight without requesting payment. A VRYNN navigator who was pulled from a damaged ship by humans who had no reason to be in that sector. Praxis remained standing on the platform, his feathers increasingly ruffled. These are individual stories. Emotional appeals. I acknowledge that some humans perform admirable actions. But this does not change fundamental facts. Humans are weak. Their technology lags behind. Their influence in galactic affairs is minimal. They make excellent servants and assistants, nothing more. Dyra growled softly. The sound reverberated through the chamber. You still miss the point. Then enlighten me, honored Pantheros, Praxis said, his diplomatic mask starting to crack. What great truth am I missing? Strength is not what you think it is, Dyra replied. I visited Earth. I walked through human cities where dozens of species live together. VRYNN, nesting beside Torque residential crystals, beside Quinn calculation centers, beside Panthros hunting grounds. All in one city. All cooperative. She gestured around the hall. Look at this chamber. Each species clusters with their own kind. The VRYNN sit with VRYNN. The Torque with Torque. You measure strength by how well you dominate others. Humans measure strength by how well they build bridges between others. Or has pulled up another holographic display. I have data supporting this observation. In mixed species environments with human presence, we see statistically significant increases in cross-species cooperation. Human children in coalition schools are 92% more likely to have friends from other species compared to any other demographic. Children making friends is not galactic policy, Praxis snapped. No, DXZER agreed. But children become adults. Adults who see other species as friends rather than tools or obstacles. This spreads. Slowly, but it spreads. Owen watched from the back row, still hardly believing this was happening. The conversation had moved far beyond mocking the maintenance worker who wandered into the wrong room. Now they were debating the fundamental nature of human society that a new voice spoke up. Granite, the Torque delegate who had presented the mining proposal. I have reviewed the K-447 incident. The humans who performed the rescue had their contracts terminated by my corporation. We viewed their actions as insubordination. The hall went quiet. I voted for that termination, Granite continued. His crystalline structure seemed dimmer somehow. I signed the order myself. We calculated that 3 Torque workers were less valuable than maintaining chain of command. The humans disagreed and paid the price for their disagreement. He turned to face Silica. You were one of the 3. I condemned you to death with mathematics and policy. Humans ignored both to save you, and I punished them for it. Silica said nothing, but her crystalline structure flickered with colors that suggested deep emotion. This is the difference, DXZER said quietly. Most species make calculations. Humans make choices. Praxis stepped forward aggressively. Fine, let us accept that humans are kind. Let us accept that they help others more readily than most species. This still does not qualify them for leadership. The galaxy runs on power, on resources, on strategic advantage. Kindness is a luxury for those with the strength to afford it. Humans have no such strength. Then what are we discussing? Owen asked. His voice came out stronger than he expected. If humans are only good for maintenance work and helping others, why spend this much time talking about us? Praxis turned to him with something like triumph in his eyes. An excellent question. Perhaps we should formalize what humans are already doing. Give them official status as the coalition's helpers. They can maintain our stations, assist our researchers, support our initiatives. Useful servants for useful tasks. Everyone benefits. Servants, DXZER repeated. The word came out flat and cold. Service personnel, praxis corrected. Respected and valued for their contributions. Surely better than their current ambiguous status. More murmurs spread through the hall. Some delegates nodded. It sounded reasonable when phrased that way. Humans were already doing this work. Why not make it official? Owen felt his chest tighten. Praxis was turning the entire conversation around, taking stories of human courage and reframing them as evidence that humans should serve other species. It was brilliant in a horrible way. DXZER moved with sudden speed. She crossed the platform in 2 strides and stood directly in front of Praxis. The VR1 delegates stepped back involuntarily. You still do not understand what sits before you, DXZER said softly. You think I came to this gathering by chance? You think I chose that seat randomly? She turned to address the entire assembly. I am here to make an announcement on behalf of the Panthros Territorial Conclave. The chief arbiter leaned forward. The floor recognizes the Panthros representative. DXZER's golden eyes swept across the assembled delegates. The Panthros Conclave offers formal alliance to humanity. The hall erupted in shocked voices. The Grand Assembly Hall descended into chaos. Delegates stood, shouted, gestured wildly. Panthros alliances were rare and incredibly valuable. The entire political landscape of the coalition could shift based on who the Panthros chose to support. The chief arbiter activated the sound dampeners. The noise cut off abruptly, though delegates continued gesturing and moving. Order. We will have order in this chamber. Slowly, the delegates settled back into their seats. But the tension remained thick in the air. Praxis recovered his composure first. Honored Panthros, surely this is premature. Humanity has not even achieved full coalition membership status. They remain probationary members with limited voting rights. I am aware of their current status, DXZER replied. I'm also aware that status can change. The Panthros conclave bases alliances on one criterion above all others: trustworthiness. She turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates from different sections. Every species in this hall has betrayed someone for advantage. Trade agreements broken when better offers arrived. Defense pacts abandoned when convenient. Research partnerships dissolved over profit disputes. This is normal in galactic politics. This is expected. Her tail swayed slowly. In 3 cycles of investigation, I found hundreds of cases where humans chose honor over profit. They honored agreements even when those agreements cost them dearly. They kept promises even when breaking them would benefit them more. They defended partners even when abandoning them would be safer. Aura stood again, displaying new data. I can confirm this pattern. Human contract violation rates are 87% lower than the coalition average. In binding agreements, humans demonstrate exceptional reliability. A Kellis delegate named Thorn stood up. The Kellis Confederation has worked with human security contractors for 6 cycles. They have never failed an assignment, never abandoned a post. We have offered them higher pay to break contracts with our competitors. They always refuse. Another voice joined in. A Quinn scientist named Delta. Human researchers share data freely. We worked on a joint physics project. When we made a breakthrough that could have earned them exclusive patents worth billions, they insisted on shared credit. They valued collaboration over profit. Praxis looked around, seeing support slipping away. You speak of money and contracts. I speak of something more fundamental. Power. Humans lack the military strength to be reliable allies. What use is trustworthiness without the ability to back it up? An interesting question, DXZER said. Let me answer with a question of my own. How many wars has the Panthros conclave fought in the last century? Praxis blinked. None. Everyone knows the Panthros avoid galactic conflicts. And why do you think that is? DXZER asked softly. The hall went quiet again. Everyone knew the answer, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Because fighting the Panthros is suicide, DXZER continued. Our species has a reputation. Cross us and die. Simple. Effective. This reputation prevents conflict. Now, I offer that reputation to humanity. The implications rippled through the chamber. A Panthros alliance meant any attack on humans would be treated as an attack on Panthros. Very few species would risk that. Praxis shifted tactics again. This still does not address my central point. Humans may be trustworthy servants, but they lack the qualities necessary for true leadership in the coalition. They should assist, not govern. I disagree, Silicus said. The old Torque delegate stood again, her crystalline structure catching the light. I have been thinking about the mine collapse, about what happened that day. The humans who saved us did not ask permission. They did not form committees or debate policies. They saw people dying and acted. She turned to the other delegates. How many cycles did it take us to approve the Atmospheric Preservation Act? 12 cycles of debate while border worlds suffocated. How long have we discussed refugee resettlement? 8 cycles and counting. We are excellent at talking. Humans are excellent at doing. Delta, the Quinn scientist, stood as well. The Quinn value logic and mathematics. By pure calculation, human approaches often seem inefficient. They waste resources on individuals who contribute little. They make decisions based on emotion rather than optimization. Yet somehow, their results exceed their methods. That makes no sense, Praxis protested. Exactly, Delta replied. It should not work. But it does. Human communities consistently outperform predicted outcomes. Their chaotic, emotion-driven approach to problem-solving generates solutions we miss with pure logic. More delegates were standing now. Not all of them, but but enough to show a clear shift in sentiment. Syrah, the VRYNN plague survivor, spoke up. Praxis, you represent the VRYNN Navigation Guild. You speak for merchants and traders, but you do not speak for me. The humans who saved my life asked nothing in return. They did not leverage my survival for trade agreements. They did not demand favors. They simply returned to their work. She spread her wings in the VRYNN gesture of formal declaration. I petition the Assembly to hear a vote on human status. They have earned consideration for full coalition membership. Seconded, Silica said immediately. Seconded. Thorn added. The chief arbiter looked around the chamber. Multiple seconds have been received. However, this is highly irregular. We are not here to discuss human membership status. Then perhaps we should be, DXZER said. The fringe territory's expansion depends on cooperation between species. You propose sending the same old species with the same old approaches to new worlds. I propose something different. She gestured to Owen, still sitting in the back row looking overwhelmed. Send humans, not as servants, not as assistants, as leaders of mixed species teams. Let them build the communities they are so skilled at creating. Let them demonstrate what they can do when given authority rather than just tools. Praxis made a sound of frustration. This is absurd. One maintenance worker wanders into a ceremony, and suddenly we are reorganizing galactic policy. No, the depicted. One species demonstrates consistent character across hundreds of interactions, and finally someone pays attention. Or is displayed another chart. I have projections. If humans receive full membership and participate in fringe expansion, estimated conflict reduction reaches 41%. Estimated cross-species cooperation increases by 33%. Colony stability improves significantly. Estimates are not guarantees, Praxis said. Nothing is guaranteed, DXZER replied. But I would rather trust the species that saved their predator than the species that mocked someone for his work clothes. The silence that followed was profound. The chief arbiter let the silence stretch for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. The Panthros representative raises significant points, as do several delegates who have shared testimony. However, elevating a species to full coalition membership requires formal procedures. Then initiate those procedures, DXZER said simply. The chief arbiter nodded slowly. Very well. The chair recognizes the unusual circumstances of this session. A formal vote will be called regarding humanity's coalition status. But first, I would hear from the human present. Owen Brady, you have sat quietly through much of this discussion. Do you wish to speak on behalf of your species? Owen felt every eye in the chamber turn toward him. His heart was pounding again, but different than before. Not from fear, from something else. Responsibility, maybe. He stood up and walked down to the central platform. His boots echoed in the silence. Grease-stained coveralls, tool belt still hanging from his waist, standing before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. I am not qualified for this, Owen said honestly. I fix things. Air filters, wiring, hydraulic systems. I never expected to speak for humanity. Yet here you are, the chief arbiter said gently. Speak. Owen took a breath. Humans learn something on Earth. Our world tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, weather, everything. We survived because we helped each other. Not just our own families or tribes. Anyone who needed help. He looked around at the assembled delegates. We brought that philosophy to the galaxy. When we met other species, we did not see competitors or tools. We saw people. Different people, sure, but people. Praxis made a dismissive sound. Everyone claims to value cooperation. Humans are not unique in this. Maybe not, Owen agreed. But we do not just claim it. We live it. Every day, in small ways that nobody notices. A human mechanic helps a torque engineer solve a problem. A human cook learns to prepare VRYNN dietary requirements. A human teacher learns Quinn mathematics to communicate better with students. He gestured around the hall. You are right that humans are not the strongest. We are not the smartest. We do not have the best technology. But we show up. We help. We build bridges between species who would never talk to each other otherwise. Syrah spoke up. Ahmed, the doctor who saved me, he learned my language. Not just medical terms. He learned VRYN poetry so he could recite it to me while I was sick. He did not have to do that, but he did. Owen nodded. That is what humans do. We learn your languages. We study your cultures. We try to understand you, not to manipulate or control, just to connect. Thorne stood again. The human security contractors we employ, they train in Kellis combat traditions. They honor our warriors' code, even though it is not their own. They do this out of respect. More delegates were nodding now, even some who had been skeptical earlier. The chief arbiter looked at Praxis. Do you have further objections to raise? Praxis looked around the hall. He was isolated now. Even other VRYN delegates were avoiding eye contact with him. He had lost, and he knew it. I maintain that this is premature, Praxis said stiffly. But I recognize the will of the assembly. Then let us vote, the chief arbiter declared. The question before this body is whether humanity should be elevated from probationary status to full coalition membership, with all associated rights and responsibilities. Or stood. The Quinn Confederation votes in favor. Silica rose next. The Tor Collective votes in favor. Thorne followed. The Kellis Unity votes in favor. One by one, delegates stood and announced their votes. The tally was overwhelming. When it finished, only 3 votes stood against. Praxis and 2 other VRYN delegates who supported him. The chief arbiter made it official. By majority vote of the assembled coalition members, humanity is granted full membership status effective immediately. Representative Brady, do you accept this honor on behalf of your species? Owen blinked. I am not a representative. I am maintenance. You are now both, the chief arbiter said with what might have been amusement. Unless you wish to decline? No. Owen said quickly. I accept. Humanity accepts. We will do our best to honor this trust. DXZER approached him as the hall erupted in discussion. You did well, human. I'm still not sure what just happened. Owen admitted. You stumbled into history, DXZER replied. I've been planning this moment for 3 cycles, waiting for the right opportunity to present humanity's case to the full coalition. When I saw you walk into this chamber, mocked and dismissed, I knew the time had come. Owen stared at her. You planned this? All of it. Not all of it. I could not have predicted how perfectly you would embody everything I wanted to demonstrate. The mockery, your quiet dignity, the stories from other delegates. That was chance. But I came here to make humans visible to the galaxy. You helped me do that. The session was breaking up now. Delegates approached Owen from all directions. Some to apologize for earlier comments. Others to introduce themselves and discuss future cooperation. A few to simply shake his hand and welcome humanity to full membership. Silica approached and extended one crystalline limb. Owen shook it carefully. Thank you, she said quietly, for what your people did, and for what you did here today. I just told the truth, Owen replied. Sometimes that is enough, Silica said. Hours later, after the hall had emptied and the crowds had dispersed, Owen sat in the back row again. DXZER sat beside him, exactly where she had chosen at the beginning. I should get back to work, Owen said. I still have maintenance schedules to keep. Will you continue fixing air filters? DXZER asked. Now that you are a coalition representative? Owen smiled. Someone has to keep the station running. Besides, I like fixing things. Helping people. That has not changed just because my title did. Good, DXZER said. The galaxy needs people who fix things more than it needs politicians. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Can I ask you something? Owen said. That survey team you mentioned. The ones who helped you. Did you ever learn their names? One of them, DXZER replied. The team leader. Brady. Same as yours. Owen went very still. Riley Brady? Yes. That is my cousin, Owen said quietly. She does mineral surveys in the frontier regions. I have not seen her in 2 years. DXZER's tail swished in what Owen had learned meant amusement. Small galaxy. Getting smaller. Owen laughed despite himself. She never mentioned meeting a Panthros. She is going to be impossible when she finds out about this. Tell her I remember, DXZER said. Tell her the Leopard keeps her promises. Owen stood up and gathered his toolkit. I will. Thank you, DXZER. For everything. Thank you, Owen Brady, Dyra replied. For being exactly who your species needed you to be. Owen walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall, tool belt jangling, coveralls still stained with grease. Tomorrow he would return to fixing air filters and repairing wiring. But tonight, he had helped fix something bigger, that he had helped the galaxy see humans clearly for the first time. Behind him, Dyra remained at her seat, golden eyes watching the empty chamber. The Leopard had chosen her seat beside the nobody, and together, they had changed everything.